The Office of the Independent Police Monitor, OIPM, serves as a crucial civilian oversight body for the New Orleans Police Department, the NOPD. We ensure transparency and accountability within the police department by making sure the NOPD follows their policies, abides by the consent decree, and is compliant with all local, state, and federal laws. Our office operates independently from the NOPD and from the federal monitors, allowing us to provide an impartial perspective on police practices and investigations. What do we do day to day? We take complaints of officer misconduct from the public and from police officers. We review misconduct investigations conducted by the NOPD's Internal Affairs, which is called the Public Integrity Bureau. We're on call 24 hours a day, every day of the year for officer-involved shootings and critical incidents, and we will go to the scene and monitor the force investigation from start to finish. We're advisory members of the Use of Force Review Board and disciplinary hearings. We run the Community Police Mediation Program, and we engage the community to ensure your voice, opinions, and concerns are heard. We, your hosts, are not police officers, but we are experienced attorneys from the criminal legal field, dedicated to transparency and accountability. We encourage you to call in with your questions, comments, and concerns. While we may not be able to address individual cases, we are committed to following up with you. So with that, let's learn more about today's guest. Chriselle?
Today we have Dominique Jones Johnson, the founder and executive director of Daughters Beyond Incarceration. As the visionary force behind Daughters Beyond Incarceration, Dominique is a dedicated and passionate advocate for children impacted by parental incarceration. With a profound commitment to making a positive impact on improving the lives of Black girls and women, Dominique has devoted her life to building and leading impactful relationships between incarcerated parents and their children. Dominique's dad has been in prison her entire life and is currently serving a life sentence in Angola prison. Under Dominique's leadership, DBI has achieved significant milestones, including the passing of Louisiana House Bill 729, creating the Louisiana Council for Children of Incarcerated Parents and Caregivers, and House Resolution 7, which allows incarcerated parents to attend their child's graduation virtually. Dominique has spearheaded DBI's Policy Advocacy Fellowship and the Parenting from Prison campaign that has garnered widespread support and positively impacted the lives of 94,000 children in Louisiana. Under Dominique's direction, DBI has earned national funding raising over $900,000. Dominique has been recognized as the chairwoman for the Louisiana Council for Children of Incarcerated Parents and Caregivers. She was selected as City Businesswoman of the Year in 2020. She is a member of Rockwood Leadership Institute and the Youth Justice Leadership Institute, and she leads fellowship further validating the significant contributions she has made in the nonprofit sector. Dominique is also a fellow with the Education Trust Local Advocacy Cohort, Foundation Chanel's Leadership Reimagined, and Tides Advancing Girls Cohort. Thank you so much for being on the show with us today, Dominique. How are you today? Excuse me.
That sounds good.
You're like, I want to meet that woman.
A
Yeah,
woman
that
from New
sounds
Orleans.
good.
Amazing, huh?
And to add, not only am I from New Orleans, I went to public schools.
Hey,
Yes.
me too.
Graduated of Warren Easton.
We're going to let that slide.
You can let it slide all the way to the finish line.
We're going to let it slide, but I'm not going to say it this show, but we all know what it is. But again, thank you so much for coming on. But we did have a representative before from DBI on. But for those that missed that radio show, I just wanted to give them an opportunity to actually learn what Daughters Beyond Incarceration is and what they do. So just let the people that are not familiar know, what is Daughters Beyond Incarceration?
Daughters Beyond Incarceration is a national organization that works to support girls ages 8 to 18 that have a parent that's currently or formerly incarcerated, and that works to support their overall enhancement and leadership development skills. It was actually just started by my dad and I to be a program that works to enhance the quality of the father-to-daughter relationship while the father serves out his sentence. It has developed into a community center. I mean, we sit on the block of Aretha Castle Haley Boulevard, and it is a beautiful building with pictures of beautiful Black girls on the outside of it.
So your motivation for creating DBI was basically knowing the struggles that you had with an incarcerated parent and how hard it probably was to, keep the communication line open and have that relationship that, of course, every girl wants with their father.
Hmm.
So I do commend you for actually, starting an organization like that to help young women that are actually having the same issues and going through the same trials that you had gone through.
It is, it is a forgotten emotion that people don't think about when a parent becomes incarcerated, regardless of what that parent has done. But you have now removed the parent from the home, and you have now changed the trajectory of a child's relationship with their parent. And that's something that we forget, because when you take out a parent from inside the home and you change the trajectory of that child's life, you don't think about how is this going to affect that child's development, the adolescent years. You're not going to think about what's going to happen with this child when they go to school and witness their peers having father-daughter dances or mother-son dances, and you don't think about that. And it's common that we as adults, we get so busy with our everyday lives that we don't think about other children when it's not affecting our homes. Well, that's what happens. And so the outcome of not thinking of those children once the impact has already been made can sometimes be a negative image that is created and stamped and stereotyped for every child that is impacted by incarceration.
And I think that's very important. Something that you brought up that they normally just do in school systems, like, father daughter dances that we just think nothing of, or donuts and dads.
Donuts and
Those
dads,
things
yep.
are hard for children that are actually being raised in homes without those parents.
It is so bad. We have girls when the school has already announced that they're having father daughter dances, the girl won't even go to school. I have had Rain LaCour, who is our youth coordinator. She's had to pick up girls from school or from their homes because they're having donuts with dads or muffins and moms. And yeah, the school just doesn't have anything in place for those students that are impacted by incarceration. The majority of the time, the school doesn't even know that they have a parent in prison.
Interesting. So there's
Ooh,
an
Stella, look at your face.
well, I mean, I think that's a real missed opportunity.
Yeah.
Because when we think about the need for students, for children to receive wraparound services that expand past just what might be happening in the home, but to the classroom and transcend all of those different spaces where a child might be to be able to receive the support they need, and then to find out that the school isn't even aware that there is a primary caregiver that is out of this child's life.
My daughter attends Morris Jeff. And I'm putting this out here, yeah, because I've had several back and forth emails about this. She's been tardy to school a lot. Most mornings are hard. And he gave her after school detention without even doing a wellness check.
Without asking what was going on.
Without asking.
Right.
Yeah, her father's incarcerated. I have an autistic twin boy. Mornings are hard.
Mornings are hard.
Mornings are hard. And one, the detention creates an imbalance between the school support staff and the child.
Right.
But then two, that's how the push out of black girls starts.
Without even trying to see what's
Without
going
even
on.
trying to see what was going on, you give it the attention. And what I'm learning is that that is the general consensus in most public schools, most charter schools, I would say, that there isn't a wellness check being done. There's just a after school detention given. And then you don't think that when a child gets detention, there's no transportation home. So when you give a child detention without checking to see, well, who's going to bring this child home, you see what you're doing? You're like, you're causing this cycle that one tells the caregiver that I can't depend on you. But then two, but now you're putting my child at risk of being left at school because are you going to bring that child home?
Right. One thing that we've received a lot of feedback about in the past that we want to believe NOPD has gotten better about, but we do need to hear community feedback on this front, is that whenever there is children at crime scenes or children that have witnessed a crime, children that are affected by a crime in any way, or children whose parents are then incarcerated and taken from a scene, are the police officers noting on a police report or reaching out in any way to the school to inform them of this major change that has happened in the home, and who is responsible for communicating that to the school, so that way the school knows this kid might not be at the bus stop on Monday, or this kid might need additional support from a teacher or from school administration moving forward because this person has been removed from the home in some way that has been very disruptive due to the criminal legal system.
So based on my research with those children that I've come in contact with and their families, no, there is no follow-up from the police.
That is very disappointing to hear.
There's no follow-up from police. But what there is a connection to DCFS.
Okay, what is that like then?
And so that puts the child into and so let me say this. As I've been doing this work, not everyone loves children with compassion. And that makes a difference in how you interact with children.
Right.
Because some people love, or I would say some people work with children systemically to just follow the rules as opposed to leading with compassion. Because when you lead and you love and you work with compassion, the outcome is different as opposed to you following the process and procedure. Irregardless, the both can work at the same time, and you can follow procedures and lead with compassion and have positive outcomes. So when you send a child to DCFS, as opposed to saying, hey, Kershell witnessed her dad being arrested, let me work to support Kershell in finding some organizational support or some therapeutic services. So that would mean that the police officers and NOPD are trained to do that. To my knowledge and to my work that I've done with the children that I've been contacted with and the families, no, that's not happening. They're recommended to DCFS, and then the outcome in the circle looks different because then there becomes frequent home monitors, frequent school monitors, and there isn't any connection to organizational support. And at least that support doesn't come from DBI because we don't get many children recommended to our organization from DCFS.
So this is an opportunity for us to be able to reflect on how the system is creating unnecessary gaps. Because, for example, if children are in a home where a parent is then arrested, those children might have to move now to a different caregiver, like grandma and grandpa. What if they move across the river? Or what if they move from one neighborhood to another, and now they're not going to be out at the bus stop, or going to the school that they formerly went to might not be realistic anymore due to a geographical change. And now we need to think about how to support this child. What would you like to see the police do on the front end to start treating these children with compassion instead of, say, as just a box that gets checked? All right, there were witnesses at the scene, kids, done.
I think what police officers need to do, one, is include youth in that decision to how that should work and what that should look like. As adults, a lot of us think that children are not capable to make decisions or be involved in decision-making solutions. But when you do involve them, you're teaching them how to make decisions, and you're teaching them what effective decision-making is. I think that's the first thing that we need to do. And then when they tell you what their ideas and solutions are, you honor them. Because right now, we don't know what 16-year-olds need. And we also don't know what 8 or 10-year-olds need. But those children can tell you sometimes what they need and what they would like to do. Because you may take a child away from a home because the mother is incarcerated, but that child may also tell you that I don't feel safe with grandmother. And you put that child in the grandmother's case in home without even asking that child. So I think they should one, start by including children in that decision-making policy.
That's a great suggestion, and we're going to take that back because I think that's an important one to know. Thank you.
And while you're talking about including youth on, decisions and things that impact them, I did have the pleasure of attending one of your youth town halls in the past.
Did you enjoy it?
Yes. I mean, you had people on your panel, of course, like, senators and former judges, but the most impactful people on the panel for me were the children that were actually able to, articulate well. Things that impacted legislation that impacted them, policies or things they wanted to see differently. And I just wanted to know what gave DBI the wherewithal to actually have something like this.
So we have this girl in our program right now. She's a little spicy one. And so I want to honor Cachet Cooks. She's a student at Frederick Douglass High School. Cachet is bold enough to say to adults, I'm 16 years old, I have a mind, and I need you to let me use my mind. And so that was that. And so we honor Cachet by giving her the tools that she needs to be educated to speak on topics. So our policy program works to support 5 high school students over the course of 6 months, January through June, and they are paid $3,000. They learn the criminal justice process, the legislative process, know your rights, and voting. This past January, they went to the White House to meet with Senator Troy Carter's team and Congressman Troy Carter, as well as Cassidy's team. Neither both were there in person, but they did get a chance to share their legislative issues with their team members. They were prepared for that by Professor Will Snowden.
I love that. We work with Professor Snowden.
And
so
listen,
that's great.
Will, if you know DBI and you know the backstory of DBI, then you know how important Will Snowden is to the development of DBI and the business plan. And so that's what we do. We pair them with facilitators to educate them, because the reason why children can't speak on the topic is because we haven't taught them
Right.
the backstory behind it. So that's what we do. We take the time to specifically teach them the backstory about the criminal justice process, and that's from arrest to sentencing. They had a chance to meet with former police chief Sean Ferguson,
Okay.
and he went through the entire process with them. And they know about Miranda rights. They know what happens if you don't get read your Miranda rights. And they were so surprised by all of that because they didn't know that's not something that they're teaching them in schools.
So, do you see other opportunities for the police department to have a informative or I don't know, positive relationship with the girls that you're working with?
Most definitely. I think one, police officers are closer to the problem as well as closer to the solution if they change if they change the vision of how their organizations work in community. So, for example, most people don't like to work with formerly incarcerated people. And I think that's the problem there. We have a formerly incarcerated person on our staff. His name is Troy Hankton Sr., and we all are familiar with the Hankton family.
Yes.
The girls in our program are highly educated about the need for parenting from prison based on the support and the work of all of our formerly incarcerated family members that we have, including Kevin Griffin and Mac Terrence. They all take the time out to teach the girls how important it is to communicate with formerly incarcerated persons when you want to learn how to understand formerly incarcerated and currently incarcerated persons. The struggle comes when we have organizations that like the work that we do but want to shield us or shield their program from the people who we are staffed by or who staff with us. And so when you want a solution to a problem, you go to the person that's closer to the problem.
So, what would you like to see? What would you like to have happen? Like, okay, for say, let's start with our office and then let's move to the NOPD.
So, and let me give you this for an example. Our office sits on the corner of O.C. Haley and Jackson, right?
Okay.
Parade passes right in front there. Since I've acquired this building, which has been about a year and a half, police officers come into our office during the parade, don't say hello, and use the restroom.
So they feel safe using the restroom, but they don't acknowledge the space and the people in it.
And my office on Mardi Gras Day is filled with families and children that are impacted by the police and by trauma.
Right.
And this past Tuesday, they walked in our office. I want to use the restroom. Now, to bridge that gap prior to the parade, whoever runs that district, hey, I have such and such officers that are going to be meeting here. Can we sit together and we figure out a positive way for us to engage with you all, support you all, and use your restroom? Because then I would say, hey, I'm going to let you meet with Troy Hankton, our family reunification officer, and our policy girls as well as Tanyanika Franklin, who's over our operations and logistics. But that didn't happen. because they automatically assumed that it was okay for them to just walk in our space and use our restroom without acknowledging us, without acknowledging the founder that's sitting there. They just walked in and used the restroom.
Okay, so that was a missed opportunity
It was.
to build a relationship.
It was.
Even like a every encounter is an opportunity to build a relationship and to, in theory, build trust where there might not have been any
Yeah.
between a community that has been historically kind of pushed out of the narrative
Yep.
by these individuals, the police officers potentially, but also by others.
Yep.
So let's extend it to our office. What would you like to see from us?
I would like to see you all have a conversation with the people who you feel like has criminalized our community.
Okay.
Troy Hankton is a person. He's a father, for one. He's a dedicated community member, and he's a mentor. Troy Hankton provides stability for the girls in our program in a way that educates them on how to prepare themselves for their family to reunite to come home.
Right.
We most recently had a father, Carlos Smith, returned home from prison from serving a 5 or 6 year sentence. His daughter Breon Smith is in our program. Troy went out and got the essential items that his dad may need when he comes home. In addition to that, he provided resources for jobs, homes if he may need it, and anything else. But you know what? He had already prepared Breon for her father's release and how to help him navigate back into society. And so, as someone who we're thinking about because of his past, because he criminalized our community, he's not denying what he did, but now he's making amends by educating people on what not to do and how to move forward and how to actually believe in second chances.
That sounds really important. So, by way of a backstory, we talked to Miss Dominique about whether or not we were comfortable having Troy Hankton on the show today, and ultimately, I decided that I did not feel comfortable. So that is definitely something that I need to reflect on,
Yeah.
and something I need to think about is, should I be having those conversations, and should I be deciding for the community what they're comfortable with?
I think-
By making that decision, did I miss an opportunity to be able to build a bridge?
I think, Stella, what your question should be to yourself, what benefits would the children have? Like when we stop prefacing it with community and focus on our children, because as adults, let's be honest, some of us are set in our ways and it is what it is. Your listeners and your viewers may not actually be open to second chances. So now your focus is on the children and the people that you have coming up under that. So what benefits would the children in our community have by having or hearing from someone that is formerly incarcerated?
And does my concept of community include kids?
Yeah.
Because I'll be honest, I don't know if I did consider kids in that decision.
We have a listening session coming up March 27th, and I think you will be brought to tears if you came in and you listened to, one, how it is set up and designed by 5 high school girls. 3 of them attend Warren Easton and 2 of them attend Frederick Douglass. They have a facilitator, is our policy manager, Renee Carthen. But Renee is sitting there as guidance. Those girls designed it. They are going to present alongside another formerly incarcerated high school young man. I think his name is Santos, and he's also a student at the Warren Easton.
Oh, gosh.
But they picked their panelists. They're still working through one community legislator to invite, but they do all of that.
They
And
put
that's-
this on themselves.
They put this on themselves.
So is this open to the public? Like, should
It
everybody
is.
come?
It is definitely open to the public. It's March 27th, and it's at our office. I think it's that's a Thursday, so it may be from 5 to maybe 6:30.
Okay.
Well, if you give us the when you
flyer.
verify, give us the
Yep.
flyer, we'll definitely
Yep.
post about it so people can know.
And when you say it's open to the public, are police officers part of your concept of public?
I think I would love for police officers to come because right now,
Okay.
the only police officer our girls love and admire because she's a frequent visitor is Officer Nippy.
We are very familiar with Officer Nippy, so give her her roses. I'm
Officer
happy to hear
Nippy
this.
is listen, that's when they think of police, they say, "Oh, it's Officer Nippy coming." Because she's safe, she is respectable, and she has shown to them that she cares for them. She's often made some visits to say she wants to drop off clothes or food or whatever. And she's also somebody that we can call on if they need something to be there at the drop of a dime. So that's who they think about when they think about community police officers, is Officer Nippy.
I'm happy to hear that. We also think about Officer Nippy whenever we think about a community centered approach to
Yep.
policing.
And just imagine if you had 500 Officer Nippys.
Oh, that would be a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
That would be a beautiful thing. And we would love if Officer Nippy would talk to other officers that she works with about her approach and how she goes into different types of spaces, but most importantly, leads with respect
Yeah.
for that space.
You can tell she's compassionate about her community and the children in her community. And I think her compassion goes for the children before the adults, and that's what's important.
And we're always talking about community and policing. If we're really being honest right now, a lot of times in underinvested communities are lower income communities. And when I say underinvested, I mean, those that are, families that make less than the average mean a household would normally make. Families that experience, some may say, over policing in their neighborhoods, or blighted properties in their neighborhoods, or places that have low food sources in that area. So in a lot of those type of communities, our first interaction with police officers are always negative. And it doesn't necessarily have to be something that you experience firsthand, of course. It can be something that you heard your uncle go through, or something your cousin go through, or something that you even just witnessed someone else go through.
Yep.
Right.
So those type of things have an impact on you. And that is something that actually, in the beginning stages, you notice that it tends to kind of diminish your trust or your will to want to believe that law enforcement can be any type of allies for you. So with that being in the back of your head, like, what do you think that NOPD, that what can law enforcement do to actually try to rebuild that trust?
I think one of the ways they work to try to rebuild trust is to collaborate with youth-led organizations. And so let me give you my definition of a youth-led organization. A youth-led organization is one that includes youth in the decision-making, the policy-making, and design of the programs that the organization does.
Okay.
So youth-led organizations, youth voices are included in the decisions, the procedures, the policy, and the design of how the program looks and works. In addition to that, they should work to restore their communities. And simple ways that you can do that, one, is by actively engaging in some of the things that those children like to enjoy. Like, a lot of the children love TikToks. Anytime an adult comes into our space, you'll see girls doing TikTok. And if you want to dance with them, that's one of the ways that you build trust and engage with them. And that's how we meet them where they are.
Right.
Right.
I can't tell you how many times I've done TikToks and selfies and everything else, but that's one of the ways that you connect and engage with some of our youth in our program. In addition to that, you should take some sensitivity training. Sensitivity training varies a bit to me based on your communities, your schools, and your organizations. As opposed to our organization, necessity training would be, one, how to engage with children once their parent has become incarcerated and you're a part of the criminal justice system. To an organization like Women with a Vision, it may be how to engage with people who are a part of the LGBT community. So your sensitivity training should change or should be transitioned based on how that community serves their target audience.
Okay.
And then also, when we're talking about ensuring children's safety, we go back to how the police officers do searches. If you're gonna do a search warrant or a no-knock warrant, or however that procedure looks, and it's 1 a.m., are you ensuring that there are no children in the home? Because that's important. If you kick down my door and I have 4 children in my house, you have caused a huge trauma and a cycle of that trauma that's going to happen in my life and it's going to traumatize my children.
Right. Right.
So how can we work to support NOPD by ensuring when you are going into a home that there's no children there?
Yeah. Not only that there's no children there, but to reframe their concept of who might be considered under their terminology when they
Yeah.
use the term subject of force.
Yeah.
And they do something like, say, go hands on with a mom,
Yeah.
do a gun pointing
Yeah.
to a mother. If there are 4 children standing next to her,
They experience that as well.
they are experiencing that force as well.
And
They-
not just mothers,
it's-
Stella. Like,
yeah.
I'm a daddy's girl.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean,
and fathers.
yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
fathers
so, you
and
know-
older siblings and cousins
Yeah.
because of how tight knit
Yeah.
our families are,
Yeah.
and because there is sharing of family homes potentially.
Yeah.
Anytime a child in their home, which we would hope is a dome of safety, if an officer comes in and there is force used, we need officers to be conscious of how that force is going to be experienced by the children
Yeah.
that are witnessing it.
And I mean, for me, that is how you can rebuild trust within your communities and in your homes and with the children that you actually have to engage with. I mean, because for me, especially girls, when you teach a girl something, you teach an entire home, you teach an entire community. Because when you think about how women are always nurturers, that nurturing is taught at an early age. So if I teach the girls in my program how a bill is made, then they're going to go teach their moms. And then they're going to, in fact, turn to say, Mom, it's important that you go and vote because this bill is going to do this, this, and this.
Right.
So when you engage and you interact with young girls, you always have to remember that you're engaging with an entire family and community because that girl is going to go teach her friends, her mom, her uncles, and everybody.
And it's very important. That's actually, a good breakdown on how knowledge actually just
Yeah.
spreads,
Yeah.
just teaching one person one thing, how they bring it back to everybody else that they may not even know that information as well.
And it is so funny when you hear the policy girls when they are in the office and they telling their friends, it's like, you don't know that we about to vote on the 29th to send you to prison. And I'm just like, wait. And then like, because it's given you don't read. Like,
Yes.
what are you,
Oh,
what
I
are
love
you
it.
doing?
And when they get able to break it down in their own lingo,
Yes.
it actually shows another level of understanding
Yeah.
that they
And that's
get
how
it.
they tell it.
That's so
So you're going to tell it to them in a professional way, and they're going to tell it to their friends in their lingo. And when you sit back and listen to the lingo,
Some of it is, a lot of it is over my head.
yes.
Over
yes,
my
yes,
head.
yes.
But also with, I remember, being in elementary school or, high school,
Mm-hmm.
our first introduction into schools with police officers were like their officers
Love
or
it.
things
Love
like
it.
that.
Love it.
But now we have, the student resource officers that are actually currently in a
Yep.
lot of public schools right now. And for a lot of kids, especially ones that have experience in the criminal legal system with this trauma, this can be seen as a source of anxiety for them. What do you think could be done to make better changes or improvements in that area for them to have more of a relationship with each other, the SROs and the students?
So for one, I don't think we need SROs in the schools. I think we do need to go back to the drug abuse resistance education programs in the schools. I
Okay.
think when we think about school resource, a resource is something that you're providing to someone to educate them, right? So if I bring a police officer in a school and I have a police officer that has like a little station, and say one of a student comes in and that student has drugs, send them to the officer to be educated on why this drug is not allowed into the school, what this drug would do to you, to your body, your community, and actually provide education instead of harm. Because the criminalization, having SRRs in the school is more so a criminalization as opposed to a resource. And that's my personal opinion. I know
Yeah.
a lot of y'all not going to like that, but that's my personal opinion. I also think that when we send SROs into the office or into the schools that are not trained on compassion and they're not trained on what a child that has been neglected looks like, you'll misunderstand that neglect for anger and abuse because you're not identifying the root cause of the problem. You're just seeing this child as a troublemaker when that child has actually been neglected or abused.
So what you're saying is, and first I want to be very clear. When you say you want this child to receive information, not harm, in your mind, harm is any contact with, say, handcuffs, the criminal legal system, anything of that nature. We're not necessarily using that term harm to suggest force. We're not saying that the SRO is going to go hands-on with this individual, with this child, but we're saying that harm could be seen in a far more dimensional way in terms of any type of contact with this system could be harmful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, I've been visiting my father in prison for 42 years. That is harmful. And I'm even taking my children through that process. That is harmful. So when you have to then ask yourself, how does Stella receive harm? How does
Right.
Stella define harm? How does Kershell define harm?
Right.
How does Dominique define harm?
Right.
So even for some children in my program, the sight of handcuffs is harmful.
It's harmful.
And so just think about if they actually take the time to educate them about handcuffs.
Right. Right.
It may not be as harmful because you have to think about in my community, Stella, when there's a funeral, loved ones are brought in handcuffs. So handcuffs are harmful to me in my community.
Yeah. So that's right there an important difference
Yeah.
in perspective
Yeah.
that we need our SROs to be conscious of, that we need our police officers to be conscious of, that simply showing up in a space might be seen as harm, not as like an engagement, but as harm to someone who, as you said, if this is how Stella defines harm, if that's how I define harm, that I'm going to feel hurt by this.
Yeah.
And so that different perspective is going to color my impression of any type of SRO experience. Well, that is really important for people to keep in mind. And that's the type of, I think, of sensitivity training that you're talking about when you say you want police officers to be aware of these things before they enter this space. So I feel like we're dancing around this very big definition of what is community policing. And now I'm just very curious. Can you describe for us what you consider community policing to be?
So exactly what we just talked about. Community policing is actually used as a prevention interventive method, right? So if we could walk into a community police station and it's different from an actual police station, like we know what first district and second district look like, but just imagine if there was a community center that was actually a police station and you can go in and get the resources you need for sex education, drug education, crime prevention. And that means you have organizations that get children involved and exposure to learning new ways of thinking, right? That's community policing. Because we are here, we're wanting the police officers to help us not engage in crime, right? So what helps children not engage in crime? Community learning, organizations, events, sports, so then be what you're supposed to do. If you're supposed to prevent me from committing crimes, give me some ways and opportunity to do that. A community police station in every district that I can go in with my children and say, hey, I need a summer camp for my children. The ones that are close to me, I can't afford. And that police officer will say, here are some resources for community summer camps that you can take your children to. Well, I have an autistic son. Yes. Are any of them friendly to autistic children? Oh, yes, this is it. And let me actually connect you with the person over there. So that's crime prevention because you're giving me opportunities in my community to prevent crime. Well, what about if I need therapy? Oh, we got a therapist on site. Let me see if she has appointments available. We got a nurse on site. Let me see this. So you're not actually making arrests. You're in the community. You're passing out resources. You're doing sandwiches for the children when they come home from school because children are actually starving when they come home from school. But you're doing what you're supposed to do to empower and enrich your community.
Right.
by providing resources and opportunity to prevent crime.
So what I'm hearing is investment, community investment
Yeah.
in other resources.
When you think about what a police officer is supposed to do, they're supposed to give you alternative approaches to prevent crime.
They are. They are. So you mentioned earlier the family unification process and how family unification program and how important that is to all the work that DBI is doing in the community, especially for these girls. And you were talking about how Troy Hankton is doing a wonderful job leading this program. Can you tell us more about some of the goals and some of the impact that you've seen this program have on our community, from parents to kids?
Oh man. So across the state, there are 94,000 children that are impacted by parental incarceration.
Wow.
94,000?
94,000. And
That's
that
amazing.
was in 2020.
Oh,
That was in 2020.
so I can only imagine.
Right. So we've struggled with creating data that describes the percentage of children. Not only that, we've also struggled to create to find data that describes the percentage of children that drop out of high school because of their parents' incarceration. And we're talking about due to expulsions, suspensions, they're just not going back, or just feeling inadequate because I'm not going to go to school because my mom or my dad is in prison and won't see me graduate. So what's the point?
Yeah, that's awful.
Family reunification prevents that. So we've launched within that our case management program. We're partnering with the Butterfly Effect that's led by Dr. Lisa Weinberg to create a case management program. And guess who designed that program?
Yeah,
Troy Hankton.
that's great. Talk to us about that.
Troy has sat with Renee Carthen, our policy manager, and Renee is a former adult child of an incarcerated parent. I think Renee's dad did maybe 20 or 30 years at Angola as well. And so they sat down alongside our policy girls to discuss what ways that will cause students to not want to succeed or excel in school due to their parents' incarceration. And so he wrote out a plan. And one of the things that we've had to learn how to support Troy with is because he doesn't know how to type. He's been in prison for 10 years.
Oh,
So we got him an iPad. He can just write it, and then you transcribes to type and email it to us. So we've taught him how to do that, and he's learned those hard skills pretty well. And so once he developed that plan, he said, okay, Dom, to do this, it has to be a continuous conversation and relationship between me, the incarcerated parent, and Dr. Weinberg. And so then it brought me back to myself. And I was like, I wish I had this. So he said, well, why do you wish you had this? What could you have done? Well, I've graduated about 3 or 4 times, and my father wasn't at any of them. Not one single graduation. So then his daughter, Tronaya Hankton, I think she's the second oldest. Tronaya said, does it even make sense for me to graduate down? My dad isn't going to be there. Like, I want to see my dad at my graduation. So then I immediately said, well, I need to pass a bill that allows incarcerated parents
Right.
to attend these children's graduation virtually. It's still a challenge because it's not a bill, it's a resolution, which means that they don't have to enforce it. And believe it or not, DOC has been pushing against enforcing that.
We said, believe it or not.
Yeah. And so then what we now work to do is it's a process to prepare an incarcerated parent and the child to attend that graduation, because when a parent is locked up, they don't know what that child is facing in their daily and everyday lives. So through our after school program, the youth coordinators and the program director, they work to educate that parent through Troy. So Troy communicates with the incarcerated parent. Dr. Weinberg communicates with the child through therapy, and she'll say, listen, Troy, I talked to Dominique. This is what Dominique has going on. You can ask or reach out to the dad to let the dad know, here are some talking discussions that you all have, because these are some things that are helping or bothering Dominique. And that builds trust. We put $25 a month on the father's Securus account so that he can have the money to communicate with the child. And then we put $25 a month on the commissary book so that he can get the essentials that he needs to be able to thrive.
That is wonderful. And for anyone who's not familiar, with Securus or what that might have meant. It's just effectively when you're incarcerated, communication isn't free. You have to pay to be able to call your family. You have to pay to be able to call anyone, and it costs a lot. So when Miss Dominique is saying we put money on the $25 on the Securus every month on that account every month, can you just explain to anyone who might not be familiar with that process what that actually now enables this incarcerated individual to do?
So Securus is the company that monitors JPay, Angola, and most Louisiana correctional institutions. There are a host of others as well, but having an incarcerated parent comes with the bill. It's basically like I paid the state of Louisiana to incarcerate my dad. And when you think about visitation, communication, or any type of relationship building, your parent becomes when your parent goes to prison, he or she becomes a ward of the state, which means the state is responsible for their well-being. Well, then we know that doesn't happen. So not only are you earning money for having my parent in prison, but I'm still paying you to incarcerate my parent. So my dad, I put $100 a month on the phone bill on a given, like an easy month, if there's nothing going on. But I also have his sisters and his mom and my 4 children. So sometimes that bill goes to $300 a month, especially if my son is in high prime sports season and my dad being a sports dad and he wants to talk to his grandson about all sports things. He will not call me and call his grandson, you got to do this and you got to do that and make sure you go this way, especially if the game is televised and he can watch it. So then the bill becomes higher.
Yeah.
And then around the holidays, most incarcerated persons, they have groups within their tiers that they're incarcerated on, and they throw parties. Well, if he wants to be included in the party, it's got to have money for that. So to ensure that your incarcerated loved one is living a stable life where they don't have to fend or do anything illegal inside the prison that would give them an infraction, you have to be able to financially support them.
Right.
And that's not, to be clear, it's not only the phone calls you're paying for. It's also including emails.
Yes.
Yeah,
As
you're
well.
paying for
that
everything.
as well.
Yes.
You're paying for
Yes.
everything.
You have to pay for everything. Visitations. I suggest that if you're going to Angola and for a 2 to 4 hour visit, you have at least $20 to $30 per person.
Wow.
Per person.
Wow. I think it's really valuable that our listeners conceptualize how expensive this process is for the families.
For 42 years.
Wow.
My grandfather did it until he passed away when I was about 16. I went off to college. My dad and I didn't speak. And so after I had my daughter Carly, we started going back to taking these trips. And so I've been taking care of my grandmother when we go to visit and my children when we go to visit.
The whole family is in some ways doing this time too.
Yeah.
Always.
It's always.
Yeah, we've said that quite a few times. We've had quite a few of our guests say that the whole community does time with an incarcerated person.
Yep.
And this is a way to frame that and for people to understand how the many ripples that these systems have in our community.
Yeah.
So, shockingly, I see we're coming up on time. So
I
feel
didn't even. I feel like we just started. I didn't
I know.
even. Like I don't
I
remember us
don't-
taking breaks or anything. But it
I-
was pretty
No,
good.
no breaks.
I don't remember how that happened. So I just really want to make sure that you have a chance to plug any programming or to have any final thoughts that are important that you want our listeners to carry with them. First, we have to say, anyone out there who's inspired by this program, which includes us,
Please donate.
donate,
Yeah.
support, volunteer, reach out, follow DBI on
Yep.
social media, support all the causes, support all the events, and remember that on March 27th, there's this wonderful opportunity. This can be a great first step for you to get involved with DBI. But now, with that said, please.
I want to first encourage folks to go to our website, sign up for our newsletters, because I cannot remember all of the upcoming events we have. The girls are going to have a listening session every month, starting March 27th at our office. You can also follow us on social media. We're at DBINOLA on all social media platforms. If you want to give us a call, our office phone number is 504-255-5573. We are located on the beautiful O.C. Haley Boulevard at 2129 Aretha Castle Haley Boulevard. Um, DBI George Monette just asks is Daughters Beyond Incarceration. We are an organization built and led by myself, Dominique Johnson. I grew up in the St. Bernard Projects, went to Warren Easton, and my father is on his 42nd year of a life sentence.
And also to plug, there's also Youth Violence Prevention Week coming up.
Youth
Oh,
Violence
yes.
Prevention Week is the week of April 20th. We are also looking for partners, organizations, and schools that want to send students to the Capitol for free. Everything that we do is for free. No children pay for anything. As a matter of fact, we give children gift cards for coming to youth there at the Capitol.
So even more reason to donate
Yes.
and volunteer
Yes,
with
yes,
DBI.
yes. Yes.
It's all for good cause.
No children pay for anything. Our after school program provides transportation from the children's school to their homes. While they're there, they receive a home cooked meal from one of our caregivers, Miss Tanisha Jones. She provides hot meals. Some of the girls have other siblings, so they're allowed to take plates home to their other siblings, and the food is delicious.
This is amazing. So if people want to donate to make sure that as many girls as possible can participate in this event, can they?
Visit www.dbinola.org and please reach out to us on social media. We're very responsive, and we love being in the community.
Well, I can tell you that we always receive very positive feedback anytime we have
Always.
DBI on the show. So the
Thank you,
community
thank
loves you.
Thank you, thank you.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Dominique. And that wraps up today's episode of The Monitor's Mic. I want to extend a heartfelt thank you to all our listeners for tuning in and staying engaged with the crucial conversations we're having about police oversight and community safety. A special thank you to Dominique from Daughters Beyond Incarceration for her candid conversation today and reminding us that the children's voice actually are the ones that are impactful and matter the most. If you missed any part of today's show or want to catch up on any past episodes, visit our website at www.nolaipm.gov. You can find and follow us on YouTube at NOLA IPM. You can also follow us on social media for updates and news on Instagram at NOLA OIPM and on Facebook at New Orleans Independent Police Monitor. Until next time, stay informed, stay involved, and stay committed to building a safer community. This has been The Monitor's Mic.